Let's see. Are we live, Mike? It looks like we are. Welcome, everybody, to Goalie Interference without Ken today. So, Mike McKenna, of course, is here, sponsored by the Jimerson Law Firm. The Jimerson Law Firm is one of the Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high stakes business, civil, and family litigation. When winning matters, seek out the Jimerson Law Firm. Mike, happy Thanksgiving week, and not a bad couple of days for the Golden Knights.
Since we talked last, it's been less than a week. Typically, we go only on Wednesdays, and today being Tuesday, of course, because of the game tomorrow, it was a pretty good week. Even with the Golden Knights taking a loss to Edmonton, you can look at that objectively by saying, hey, they got a point out of it, which here's at this stage of the game, honestly, that's kind of where we're at, where it just doesn't seem right that they only got a point, and considering it went to overtime, you know.
But
I think that.
Do you think that, and tell me about this, you would know, that trip is, it's a difficult trip. And then when you add in Calgary, it's even tougher. But I know Vancouver's not having a great season, but offensively, they're pretty good. And then the fact that you're going from Edmonton to Vancouver, I'd say 3 out of 4 is not bad.
I think it's really good. I really do. And especially considering that you're going into Edmonton, not because of the long trip to Edmonton, but because the Golden Knights had played just 2 nights previously. Even though it's at home, even though it's against Arizona, that's a pretty heavy schedule. You got 3 and 6, you've got 4 and 8, and you've got travel involved here. And, you get done playing on Thursday night against Arizona, you get home, you try to get some sleep, you're all amped up, you come back. Friday, you're going to fly. And then Saturday, you got to get it going again in a different time zone in Edmonton against a team that's an offensive threat. And you got to try to neutralize Connor McDavid while you're at it. So to come away with a point there, I would be completely happy with it for the Golden Knights. I'm not happy with how they played a couple of those goals against. I don't know why Chandler Stevenson didn't just take a massive run at Connor McDavid on the game-winning goal in overtime. It's one thing, I think it's easy to look at how Petrangelo played McDavid in the neutral zone and think, why didn't he get him there? Well, because with the speed he had, Petro would have had to literally take down McDavid and take a penalty in the neutral zone, I think. But Stevenson could have just skated right at McDavid and I think neutralized that threat. So
is it a thing where, and I remember talking to Nate Schmidt about this, where yeah, it's true. Sometimes these guys get caught up watching and looking at McDavid, not knowing specifically, thinking themselves, wow, this guy's so good, he's going to burn me, but more or less like, okay, I'm going to try and stop him, but then he skates circles around me.
It can happen, but I think it's just players tend to give too much respect to others that are driving the net. They think that they've got to just let the goalie have the guy driving and take any pass. There was no pass there. It's McDavid. You go to him, you take him. That would have been my take on it. But even that game in Edmonton, though, is a little bit of a sleepy start. And truthfully, I think if you look, they probably deserve to win that game in my eyes. I was live tweeting along with that and thinking, okay, Vegas is carrying the pace of play here. They managed to stay out of the box and they didn't actually against them. They took 4 there. Take it back. They did. They have 4 penalties against them in that one. That's the wrong thing to say. But I didn't like the second goal on Hill, the Fogle goal. I believe it was Fogle's. That was the one in the slot where, it's Hill's sliding and then he slides out of position. Puck goes in the middle of the net. And then you look at the Draisaitl goal. I didn't like that at all. And it's easy to say, well, Draisaitl's at a bad angle, blah, blah, blah. Well, Nurse gets Hill to bite, and it was just a pass, and Hill dropped to his knees. And then when the pass gets across the Draisaitl, he went just full scramble mode and tried to reach for it and ended up on his ass again. When if you read that properly, if you'd been patient, if you'd stayed on your edges, you probably get there on your feet in time, and it's a pretty routine save. It wasn't even a good shot. Draisaitl shot it to the far side. So if that's 2 goals against it, I think were savable. That's the difference in a game against Edmonton, and you're not even looking at overtime at that stage of it. So.
I've heard coaches after a game, specifically against a team like Edmonton, that if you're going to pick up a point in a game where Draisaitl and McDavid scored, it's an okay night.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can get that, but those guys score every night. You know,
Yeah, seems
that's the
like it.
hard part. They pretty much do score every night. And I'm not faulting Hill totally for this. I just think that those two goals weren't great, and he had no chance on Hyman's goal whatsoever. And um, was it a terrible evening? No, but it could have been a little bit better. Um, and I think, looking objectively at it, look at the goals that Vegas did score. I mean, Kolesar gets one off his ear, basically,
Right.
you know, and Stone gets a penalty shot and another great goal from middle ice. It was kind of a classic Mark Stone performance in some ways, trying to lift up the team. And I don't know about you, but I was surprised by this. I talked about it while I was live tweeting. Did you think that Thompson had tipped off Stone? Did you see that happen in real time
Oh, when he
on the
was
penalty shot?
talking, I did
Mhm.
not. Did you?
I did not in real time. And I actually didn't realize it had happened until somebody responded to one of my tweets about it. And they were asking, hey, do players ask goaltenders where they should go on somebody? And I responded that, yeah, this does happen fairly often, but I always told the shooter, just go do your best move. Don't worry about the other goalie, which in this case would have turned out to be terrible advice. In this case, Logan Thompson gave Mark Stone the best advice he could ever get, which I guess it's not terribly surprising because Stone's not a shootout specialist. Like, it's not that
Right.
he's bad on breakaways, but he's typically, like, your scouting report on Stone is that he's either going to shoot high or he's going to make a move. He's not a 5-hole shot guy. Like, I tweeted that there. You would never pre-scout Mark Stone thinking this guy's going to come in and shoot 5-hole on me. And Thompson had seen Skinner plenty in the American Hockey League between the Bakersfield Condors and the Henderson Silver Knights. And he gave a great scouting report to Stone, because look at the response, man. Stone's coming over. He's doing the crazy eyes. He's doing the expressive Mark Stone right to Thompson, big old point. I thought that was a pretty cool moment in the game, but they could have easily won this one.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hill, and you didn't necessarily want to blame him or not, and
Mm-hmm.
either way they pick up a point. But let's carry the goaltending over to Vancouver again. In my opinion, it wasn't their best goaltending / defensive performance. However, the offense was flowing, and as long as you outscore your opponent, that's all that matters, right? But over the past two games, and let's get into the Vancouver game. Thompson wasn't at his best, or was it more or less that he was just facing a really, really aggressive offense?
Well, that's Vancouver for you. That's a team that doesn't play any defense. They do have a ton of talent. Bo Horvat's been on fire for them. Pettersson can
Fantastic
play.
player, yeah.
Oh man, Horvat's going to get a king's ransom because they got to trade that guy. It has to happen.
I think he's so underrated around this league as well, and I think
Mhm.
maybe it has a lot to do with him playing in Vancouver and the Pacific time zone and all that. But
Right.
I think you're right.
So were you surprised that that first goal got called back? Because with it, we were all thinking it's going to be under the glove. And I wasn't really sure how that was going to get called because I didn't think Thompson had it long enough. And then, yeah, it turned out it was offsides anyway.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of interesting because listening to the broadcast, and I was watching the Vancouver broadcast as well, and it was one of those confusion. What are they actually looking for? Is it this? Oh, might be that. It might be this. But yeah, it was just an offsides call, and hey, listen, you got to give it to the video coach teams and the coaches that have the faith in these guys to challenge those.
For sure. No, it was a good call. I thought the Golden Knights, despite the shot totals, were pretty sleepy for the first part of this game, which, again, man, you're on the road, you're trying to find legs. And I don't fault them for a second with that. They at least, like, they possessed the puck, but a lot of it was external. It wasn't really getting through. And I'm thinking, man, they're going to give Demko a pretty good game. And then by the middle of the second or early third, whenever it started to go off, I tweeted it. This game's going to end 9-8 overtime. Like, this is just a mess of a game, and you could sense that it was coming. I thought Thompson, this wasn't his best game either. Like, I don't think that the goals were all his fault, but even like, Myers scores and it's a passing lane that he can't quite get his stick on, but it goes between his stick and his pads. It's a tough triangle to deal with. But you look at these and Golden Knights are up, it was 2-1 going into the third, I believe. And that's really where you're hoping you grab a save right off the bat, to keep this game ahead. And, here comes Horvat, backhand, forehand, 5-hole, which is not expected, right? Was that Horvat for the second goal for them?
Yeah, I think he scored a
It was,
minute and a half in, and
yeah,
then
that's what
I
I thought.
believe they scored. I think they rattled off 3 in the first 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, because again, I mean, Haig put one in his own net, and this was just a messy game in general. Like I just felt like it was going to be, like I said, like 9-8, and the one that's kind of sticks out a little bit was just Pettersson from middle ice when Thompson makes the first save, but kind of loses his net past that. I'm not sure what else you're going to ask there. So I
He
do
had
want your
2 men
take.
on him.
Yeah, I mean, I do want your take though on the camera getting absolutely smashed during the game.
What an unbelievable sequence! Because to tell you the truth,
Yes.
I at first thought, maybe it's too difficult for them to overturn this call because, maybe language in the rule book doesn't have something where if it hits so and so or whatever, it doesn't count and it's a dead puck. So I actually thought that they were going to keep the goal. It was going to be a good goal, but once you saw the replay and again, it doesn't look exactly like the puck, but it's something that's moving in a different direction. And you could see the goaltender just, he's following the camera lens or whatever it
Right.
was. And
The
I mean,
debris.
yeah, I mean, as a
Is.
goaltender, have you ever bumped into something where maybe it was a blade or something fell from the stands or something that you thought that was the puck when realistically it wasn't?
So as I yawn because I'm 2 hours ahead of you, I know I've had this happen, or I've seen this happen where the camera, whether it's the lens or whatever that piece is that attaches to it, ends up on the ice. I've seen this happen before. I cannot remember if I was in the net or if I was just watching a game. I can't, but I have seen it happen. And it looks just like a puck. When it's going across the ice, that's what catches your eye. It flutters, it's round, it hubcaps just like a puck. You don't know what to do. And it was an insane sequence of events because it took a little while for it to shake out, right? Like the puck gets back to the point, there's a rebound, Mark Stone puts it in, and this is all happening after we've had this craziness go. So is it the right call? Yeah. Was it
Yeah.
just bonkers? Absolutely. But I really thought when that happened, I actually thought that the Golden Knights were in trouble. I didn't think they were going to be able to pull off the win. Like just momentum wise, I'm like, man, they're coming, they're playing well, but this is going to just be what changes it. And that didn't happen at all. Like they kept coming in the third, and guess what? Vancouver kept melting down. That team blows third period leads like crazy. And that's where I think Vegas really took it to them. Like it was no doubt to me. How long did it take after that for them to go score? 3 minutes, I think, before Petro went down.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And the other thing is, I don't want to suggest that it's just Vancouver. Like you said, I think Vegas took advantage of that, right? Now, is that a coach problem? What is that when you blow so many late game leads? I mean, I think you as well going into the season, we had expectations with Vancouver. I think a lot of people did, and they're not going to make it out of this if they keep blowing leads like that.
My expectations weren't high for Vancouver, actually. I just looked at their,
it was
especially
just Ken and I.
I believe so. Yeah. I didn't have high expectations for Seattle. I'll give you that one. And that team looks pretty good right now.
They sure do.
Finally they got some goaltending. Martin Jones has been pretty good. But I looked at Vancouver's blue line and just thought this is a mess. They've really got 2.5 guys there that I trust. I don't really honestly know. I don't think I'd trust Quinn Hughes a whole lot.
I was just going to say, is he?
And I definitely don't trust Ekman Larson. I mean, defensively, and he's not doing much offensively either at this stage for that cap hit. Tyler Myers has been, there. Like
Ethan Bear had a good night. I thought. I thought he's a good addition.
Yeah, but I mean, the guy's a healthy scratch on a good team, and that's kind of what you're looking like. Is that if this is going to be the guy that fixes your team as a healthy scratch in Carolina, you got real problems on defense. But it's not just defense. Like they're just so loose in their zone and they don't have a whole lot of system to them. Like when you look at the difference between a Bruce Cassidy coach team in Vancouver right now, Yeah, Vegas has the horses, but Van is so loose, man. And after Petrangelo's goal, you can there's a close up of Demko, and he's shaking his head, like he's in utter disbelief at how bad his team is, and that he
Like
just allowed
basically
another.
it's happening again, not shaking
Exactly,
his head that he made a mistake, but it's happening again.
exactly right. Like he's thinking, I can't believe this can't be happening. Another 5 spot. How every night it's 4 or 5 goals, and it's just a blatant disregard for the middle of the ice, for the slot area. Like Petrangelo should never be allowed to sneak in on the back door, catch a pass just below the dot or so, and get to his backhand in the slot. Like he should only be able to make that move if he goes almost to the goal line and just drives the net. He shouldn't have that much space.
Right, and he was. It looked like he was the primary option there. And granted,
Yeah.
he definitely wasn't, but they read that correctly. And I think it goes back to what you were saying, that they're so loose defensively. And you know, I, a lot of people think Edmonton defensively as well isn't a good enough team, but it's funny because a guy like Darnell Nurse can anchor, right? And then you have the rest of the guys kind of come around. They're not a great defensive team, but I do believe that in the postseason you could still win with their defensive core. I'm not saying deep, but I think you can win with their defensive core. Vancouver, I don't, as you said a couple of minutes ago, they're just not good enough.
No, you can't win with that lineup in Vancouver. So I think you got dual-fold there. I don't think that team's playing well systematically. I don't think they have the horses to do it. I think there's blame to go around in Vancouver. And right now, Demko he's sick of it. You can tell. You're shaking your head like that. He's had enough. Yeah. And I don't know if he wants to leave or anything, but man, I can't imagine he wants to stick around much longer, because that team's not going to be good for a couple of years. They're not.
Is it sort of the
Horvat's going to
Gibson
be gone.
situation?
Well, Gibson's situation's dire
Right.
because Anaheim is just horrendous. Like they got waxed by St. Louis 2 straight games, and Gibson got pulled the first game, and then the second game you're thinking, do they have to pull him again? It's like every night you're wondering if they're going to pull Gibson.
Yeah.
And at least Demko, when I watch him, I'm actually going to have a piece out tomorrow in Daily Faceoff that I have to start writing after this. That it's going to be diagnosing Thatcher Demko, and I think Demko's problems to me aren't quite as big as, say, Jack Campbell and what he's had so far. I still think Demko has a lot of structure to work with that's really strong. I think he's just beat up at this point, and I think you can only do it for so long before it just gets to you. And I don't know how he's going to get out of it. He's allowing goals that go through him that I haven't seen before, and it's
What is that
ugly.
conversation like? You're Demko, you're being worn down, right?
Yeah.
And the team is struggling. So the coach is, his knack is to go to his number one goalie over and over again. So at what point is there a breaking point? And at what point does Demko, either the goalie coach or the coach, how does that conversation begin, and where does it start? Like, who is he talking to? And eventually, what's the outcome?
Well, they have given Spencer Martin a couple of starts there. They've flipped him around a little bit to try to give Demko some time and really just get any juice for the team. I know Demko is very, very close with goalie coach Ian Clark in Vancouver, and they work hand in hand. And Clark has had success everywhere he's been. Started in Florida with Roberto Luongo. He went to Columbus, where he had Sergei Bobrovsky, along with the whole cavalcade of guys that have been there ever since. Clark was also in Vancouver for a time where, he also worked. Boy, I'm trying to think of the time frame, and now he's in Vancouver. That's what it was. He was originally Vancouver. He went to Florida. He went to Columbus. Now he's back to Vancouver. And this guy I had him in my career. He's unbelievable. And I think he'd be the first to say, this isn't on Thatcher at this point. We can work on things, but this team's terrible. So I think that they've got his back. He knows what's going on. It's just, how do you present this? Like every now and then you want to have a big game, and Demko's had like 2 this year, but I think he's only had 1 game this year that he allowed less than 3 goals.
Oh,
And
I mean,
it's miserable because he did it all last year too. It was just awful last year.
And I'm sure goalies, players have always told us they don't pay attention to stats, which, by the way, is bullshit because
Oh
last
yeah,
night they almost blew the game trying to feed Marchessault a goal on his
yeah,
500th. Was it his 500th game? Yeah.
yeah.
So listen, I love guys giving up cookies, stuff like that, but not in that moment,
No,
and I would assume that goalies, they look at their stats a little bit as more, and they probably say, hey, this wasn't on me.
yeah. You have to be realistic, but after a while, when you just keep losing and losing and losing, boy, you do look inward. There's no way around it. So, I mean, and thankfully the Golden Knights haven't had to deal with that much. Like I think Thompson's been really good. Hill has really struggled the last couple games, so I haven't been as bullish on him. But if we want to go down the list of guys that I think have been really strong for the Golden Knights lately,
Let's do it.
I mean, Jason, I got all the time in the world for Will Carrier, man.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
this guy is awesome, and I don't know if you put the 4 targets out on the net if he could hit all 4 targets, but
Probably not, but
if he doesn't just will away to put the pucks in the net, and like he's more than like a culture guy. Like he's someone that Cassidy knows in every situation, not every situation, because he's not going out for the power. Well, no, I take it back. He is now playing power play. Will
yeah,
Carrier set up and is now playing power play. But isn't that not a direct reflection of the work that he's done and that he deserves it? And
absolutely.
stick
And
him in
Mike,
front of the net.
like you said, he might not be the most accurate guy, and he might not be able to finish a lot. But just think about all the times over the past 5 and now 6 season, how many times that he's drove to the net. It looked like he was gonna, he had a chance to score. Granted, his
Mhm.
hands aren't as good as McDavid's and Carlson's and Riley's, but for the most part, I mean, he's been exactly what he was billed out to be when they brought him in. Granted, I think they assumed he was going to score more, but hey, if it takes this long to get to that point where he's going to get double digits in goals, then this could be one of those situations that helps them in the postseason because they desperately need that depth scoring. And hey, this is the guy.
It has been. And, with the third line has kind of been a black hole. There's no way around it. But I don't think that line's hurt them. We can
Not
sit here and
necessarily, no.
piss and moan about not having diversified 4 line scoring and stuff, but that third line hasn't hurt them.
It
And
takes
I
penalties,
think,
though.
well, if Cotter's in, yes, that's going to happen. And but I think that Howden has done a pretty good job in that place, playing in the middle of the ice. He skates well. He's rangy. Kolasar fits that bill. I like that. What I like about it is that like Carrier and Kolasar, both those guys, they flirted with playing a little bit of third line for the Golden Knights, a little bit elevated role. And you know what?
Specifically last year when injuries were happening,
Yeah,
they were both used in different situations.
yeah. And you know what? I like them in the role that they're in. I think it's where they belong. I think it's Carrier. This is who he is.
Yeah,
Kolasar, I don't see going beyond this. I like that he can still go out and grind and hit and play a physical game and know what he's going to have to do. It's a good thing when your role is very clearly defined and you don't have to reach for something that it isn't. And for those guys, if they work hard, lay some hits, and go to the net and chip in some points here and there, which they're doing, they're getting the job done. So I'm real impressed with Will Carrier. I'm still impressed with Will Carlson. He just hasn't found back of the net because it's kind of seemingly all going to Riley Smith right now. And
I
even
agree.
Marsh, I think, has had more. So I've got a bit of concern that Carlson's just fallen off, even though I still think that he's been involved in the play. But the two guys other besides Carey for me, like I think Stone's been great.
Yeah,
Obviously he scored, but it's Stone and Eichel together. And these two are really starting to find the pace that they can play with one another. Okay. Like we're not just seeing Jack Eichel gain zone entry and go spin around the carousel anymore as often. You know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking
pretty to
about.
watch. Yeah,
He didn't get the puck on a stick and he just goes circle around the zone and go around the net. Like I think Eichel's done a better job of being way more direct. He's going to the net with the puck. And I think part of that's because he knows Stone's going to be there to support it when it is. Um, And he looks like he's number one having fun, but he also has a lot of really veteran guys to lean on in that room. And one other guy is Petrangelo. He's
Yeah.
been awesome. Dude, he's been great. And I didn't really like the start of the year. I thought that he looked a little bit out of sync. I thought he was probably not physically hurt. I think he was hurt by the fact that Alec Martinez, to me, was still kind of finding himself even after, he did come back last year, but I didn't think he was the same guy last year.
I think he would agree with you. Yeah.
And Martinez, even at the start of the year, was still a little off, and he doesn't look like it at all. Like those two look completely in sync, and it's given Petro the chance to just roam and do what he wants. And I mean, are you going to get Petro deep in the zone occasionally in the offensive zone? Yeah, it's going to happen. But you're also going to offset that with him having the guts to shoot a puck from almost the bottom of the goal line, and Mark Stone bats it out of the air in the net. And you're going to offset it with Petrangelo being able to go in, dive in, backdoor, and go forehand, backhand, and it's in. So I've been really impressed with him killing penalties. Same way, all situations. Petro's playing a lot of minutes. And, I thought we were at a point where Theodore might be taking over the number one spot, and that's, to me, not at all right now. It's Petro. Petro's the guy over the boards for all that stuff. And
I've always been one of those guys that, and you knocked my question out of the air a couple of weeks ago, and I said, Mike, don't hockey players look at the entire picture where they say, maybe I need a night off here and there. And that's my biggest fear with Petrangelo. But obviously Cassidy, Petrangelo, and yourself don't find that a big deal.
No, not a bit. You just want to play, man. Simple as that. And I just, I think that club's pretty rock solid in terms of the D. And I know people look at it's easy when you just kind of feed off of what's said internally to a team that, hey, we've got a great D core, it's a diverse D core. But when I talk to other people around the league, that they're coming back with that same answer, Jason, that is a really strong D that they have to build from. And I don't think the outside perception is that Haig and White Cloud are as bulletproof as sometimes it may seem from the inside in Vegas. Okay.
Right.
Like, Haig had a tough one last night and last night, and it can happen. But that top four is, dude, it's withable. You know what I mean? I'm trying. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get this out. Like, you can't mess with that top four. That's as good as you're going to face in the NHL. Petrangelo, Martinez, and McNabb, who just keeps getting it done with Theodore. You think Vancouver'd like to have that top four?
Oh, I think they'd like to have one of those guys and they'd be doing better. Do you? Yeah. I know last week you said you were really happy with Theodore's production, and I think for the most part, I think he's had an okay season. Are my expectations just too high on him? And is what Shea Theodore is today, is that who he is?
What you're seeing is what you get. Yeah, at this stage, at this age, this is what the player's going to be. And I have been really happy with what he's done. I just think in these last couple games, it's turned into the Petro show. Right? Like, he's been the guy, which it's no knock on Theodore. It's just that I think Theodore's been a little bit less noticeable, even though he's continued to have the production. And it's nice that he doesn't have all that weight on his shoulders either. He doesn't have to do it by himself.
Was it a knock when they went out and got Petrangelo? Was that a knock to Theodore, or did he at least consider that? Because in my opinion, and I'll go back to Alex Tuck, I never understood why Alex Tuck was on a third line when he has first line talent. And the fact that he couldn't crack the top six here, I don't want to question the player, but I did. I questioned the player. And this situation with Theodore, I always expected he would be the number one eventually. And clearly he's not going to be.
With Tuck, to me, it's just consistency. That's all it's been. And even in Buffalo, he's played top line minutes with Tage Thompson and Skinner, and he hasn't been consistent. He'll bust out for 4 or 5 games and just be unstoppable.
Right.
And then radio silence for the next 5, 3, 4, And the guys that bring it every night are your top players. Now, for Theodore, I think it's just a luxury for the Golden Knights that they were able to get somebody like Petro, even though they gave up a ransom to do it. I mean, we've been down this road before.
Right.
And I, at the time, did not think that they should have made that play for Petro. I still think at this stage, I'm I'm more on the fence about it now. I'll say that because I think that the team has balanced out since then. When they did it, that timing was just really bad, I thought. Um, but now, if you got this player that can chew minutes, you're looking pretty good. So I don't think Theodore was taken aback by it. Really, I think it's just another weapon for the team. You're happy to see that you've got another D that you can trust, so you don't have to play 30 minutes. You can just play your 20.
Right.
And realistically, I'm really not sure how bad Shea Theodore wants to kill penalties. Okay, and I don't
I
mean
was going to
that.
say, I'm with you there.
I hate to put words in anybody's mouth, but as much as have watched, I've never felt like he looked comfortable killing penalties. Maybe he loves it for all we know, Jason. I don't know. I mean, most players just love to be on the ice and help their team. But God, Petrol just looks mean on the kill, and
Yeah, he
McNabb looks
does.
mean on the kill, right? Like they've got a bloodthirst on the kill to get that puck. White Cloud, he'll eat anything. And I just don't think that's Shea's game. And that's no knock. That's fine. But when you have someone like Petro, it can take that burden off a guy like Shea's shoulders and just let him focus on doing what's best. And that's skating all over the ice, making outlet passes, chucking pucks on the net. It's not having to play hard.
In a way, I don't have a problem with a guy not being on the penalty kill, even though he's talented enough. I mean, he's clearly talented enough to skate around, get the puck, dish it off the boards or dump it. But I always wondered, okay, so when Max Pacioretty first came here, I remember reading a story about at some point, and I forget which coach it was, that approached him and say, Max, you're the captain. You're being paid this amount of money. You need to learn and you need to be good on the penalty kill. And Max's quote was, yeah, you're right, I do. And he worked all summer long and he made sure that he was available to be called on for the penalty kill. I'm seeing the same thing, and you tell me if I'm wrong or not. I'm sort of seeing the same thing with Eichel. The fact that he's out there, I feel like he wants to prove, okay, I'm not just an offensive player. I hear what you guys are saying out there, but my talent can go both ways.
This is what I was alluding to earlier when I said that Eichel is surrounded by good people, and it's brought him along. He was a captain before he shouldn't have been a captain, in my eyes, in the league.
It's a good point.
He's the best player on the team. The Pagulas family owns Sabres. He's the best player on the team. He's got to be our captain. And that team, who else were they going to put out there, I guess, and sometimes, in some ways. I think that he's grown a lot in this time as a Golden Knight, even though it hasn't been a full calendar year in the lineup. Again, because when you're skating with Mark Stone, Alex Petrangelo, Riley Smith, Alec Martinez, man, these are guys you look up to. Like even if you're Jack Eichel, think of the accolades there. Okay, Petro's won a Stanley Cup. He's been a captain that's done it. Alec Martinez, game-winning goal in Stanley Cup playoffs. He's won cups. He's basically done it all. He's an absolute warrior out there. Riley Smith, one of the smartest guys you run into, but also more intense than people realize for Smith, in a good way. And Stone is just somebody that you look at like he's your grandpa, even though he's 30, I think to me, Eichel can feed off that and it becomes contagious because he sees how they work on both sides and that's what you have to do. And you've got Bruce Cassidy pushing it too. Like you have to do that. You don't want to play defense. You're not going to last for Cassidy. And I think it was in the Edmonton game, but I didn't put it in my notes, but there was one moment where Eichel just was hauling ass on the back check, went full diving head first to break up a play.
I think it was the Edmonton play, yeah.
And I should have put it in my notes when it was, but because it was one of those like finite moments where I went, man, this guy's starting to get it here. There's a hunger for that.
Yeah.
And boy, that makes a difference because Eichel's been damn good, man. Like, there's no getting around it at this point that he's been really good. So
about a month ago, right, I wrote, well, maybe more than that. It was after about 6 games. And Eichel had a few goals, but they were mostly goals that when they were up already 1 or 2, and
Mhm.
he hadn't picked up any primary assists, and really he had just been, I don't want to say going through the motions, but he was Jack Eichel, an incredibly talented player, but he wasn't the most talented player on the team, or at least not playing like that, or at least not
Mhm.
having that impact yet. And I got slammed, and that's fine. I mean, my point was not Jack Eichel isn't performing. It was, when will this team be Jack Eichel's? When will Jack Eichel
Mhm.
be, every night you see a guy that basically, maybe he's not Connor McDavid's talent, but he's out there every play, every time he's on the ice, he's doing something, and he is scoring huge goals. He's got assists. I mean, both those goals last night, granted, they were basically his. He just didn't get
Mhm.
credit for them. So
Yeah.
that's what I was looking for, and I think you're nailing it right now when you're saying he's been really, really good, but better than good. This is exactly what I expect out of a $10 million player, and I'm just so excited that it's working out this way.
That's a big reason why this team is fun to watch for me, and they're exciting. Because I think I've seen growth to some players. Yeah, I mean, Will Carrier, dude, he was fine for a long time. He's always worked hard, but God, he's been so good. Like he's so good, and watching Eichel kind of get to that same level, it's fun. Watching Logan Thompson really, get to make it stick in the NHL. That's
Yeah,
fun, right? Like there's people on this team that I want to root for. Mark Stone, I think the world of, right?
I
And
agree. And seeing
that's
him healthy, Mike, I mean, how
mm,
how for fans who's watched him the past, whatever years, just seeing him, that expressive Mark Stone, seeing him play this way, it's infectious, and I think it's even
yeah.
infectious to the fan base.
For sure. Like that's a guy that people rallied around. You can't help but like it and embrace it when you see it. And people don't know how hurt he had been. Like what they yanked out of his back, I haven't seen it. I know there's somewhere there's pictures floating around of it, but I don't think it was pretty, and I don't think it was small. You know what I mean? Like he had some serious back problems that credit to modern medicine seems to have healed up because and it's kind of nice for him because it's not on his shoulders either.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have to do it all either. And I think that boy, we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and if the Golden Knights aren't scoring, you're still going to look at Stone, but you're going to look at other ones first. and
Right.
and that's kind of the hard part because Mark Stone's always been your, I don't know, like 80-point guy. I'm not looking at his point totals here, but you're 75, 80 point,
Yeah.
85-point guy. Like he's not your 110-point guy, So temper your expectations a little. Let the guy lead, which he's doing. Let him give all the high fives in the world, as long as he doesn't blow anybody's rotator cuff out, and just enjoy what you're seeing. So I'm actually just jealous of people that get to be there in person for it, because it just kind of feels like this club's got the mojo back, from the fans to the players to everybody. I've said this previously. It just, the whole firing a Turk and going to DeBoer was such a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and that started all the shit started rolling downhill there. It felt like,
Right.
and it was just one gut punch after another. From players leaving to bad things happening to her injuries. It never ended, and it really just felt like, even though Ken says this, and I agree with him, I don't think Pete DeBoer deserved to get fired. I really thought he did a great job last year to keep that team afloat.
I agree.
It felt like it was wiping the slate clean by bringing in somebody else, and somebody from totally outside, not a shark coach, because that it didn't matter to the players, but goddamn if it didn't affect the fans. Fans are we brought in the enemy's coach,
I still think, in a way, that it did affect the players. I spoke with several former players after the decision was made, and granted, they had an alliance to Gerard Gallant, right?
Mhm.
But many of the players were, that guy. They
It
really
was a
fired
big
Gerard and went to that guy.
WTF moment.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, management will do that sometimes to try to catch players' attention. But
Were they? So were you suggesting that they were, I don't know, maybe giving them like a shot in the arm here, like, hey, listen, wake up, you're good enough, and
yeah,
you're not playing well enough.
listen, the knock on Turk has always been that it's a country club under him. It's always been whether that's right, wrong, and different. That's always been it. And I went to 2 of his training camps. They were the easiest training camps of my life, my career. Okay, they really were. But that's not to say that Turk didn't demand players to work hard at all. It just that was the feeling. That's the aura of Turk is people think his teams can kind of just walk through stuff. And I think that the Golden Knights management really just wanted somebody who they thought was going to push these players, and who better than picking up your arch enemy's coach if you're like, that's your wake up call. The problem is that I believe that that's a short-sighted way to do business. I don't think you want shock value with your players, especially in today's game. I think that's a very old school, you know, old school white guy mentality. Okay. Obviously I'm joking around here with that, but like, I just think that it doesn't play well with today's players, especially when you've done a lot with a guy. It's not like the Golden Knights were on a massive slump when that happened.
Right.
So,
And the other thing is, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think, again, I want to reiterate, Cassidy just felt like it was kind of a clean slate for everybody. And like, even for management, I think it probably kind of helped them feel like they've kind of cleansed themselves of this really awkward, weird phase, and now they can just move on. And I mean, geez, even, Kelly McCrimmon was on 32 Thoughts recently with Merrick and Friedman, and he just sounded light in a good way, and that was kind of refreshing to hear.
I still don't buy his cap space is as good as top picks. I'm not every.
I don't buy that either. Look at Nick Suzuki. The guy's an absolute wheel.
I know you watch a lot of hockey. I do as well. And I know Golden Knights fans have only seen him once this year, but is he not a fantastic player and already there? I mean, him and Caulfield together, Suzuki is a fabulous player.
So I made this comparison earlier today on SiriusXM that by the time it's all said and done, if everything stays together and the Canadians start to get them back on track, I think the potential is there that we look at Suzuki and Caulfield as a duo in the same vein that we look at Taves and Kane in Chicago.
Wow. I thought you were going to say Marchand and Bergeron, but that's even just as good of a comparison.
No one's as greasy as Marchand, so I can't say that. And by the way, credit to Patrice Bergeron, 1,000th point as a Bruin. Only four players in Bruins history have ever recorded 1,000 points with that team. And we're talking Johnny Busick, Ray Bourque, Patrice Bergeron, and Phil Esposito. And there's only been 25 players in the history of the NHL to have 1,000 points with one team.
Wow.
Pretty amazing for Patrice Bergeron.
Absolutely.
But anyway, sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. But no, I'm neither Caulfield or Suzuki to me is going to be at the same level as a Patrick Kane. He's one of the greatest talents to play in the NHL in my eyes. Kane.
Sure is.
But I think when you combine Taves and Kane and the effect that they had on that franchise in Chicago and the lasting power, I think that could be the same type of dynamic you see with the Suzuki and Caulfield. If that team goes on to have success, even if they don't win a cup, if they get really good runs, that's kind of your dynamic power duo. So I'm really anxious to see it, because you're right. Suzuki is here now. He is now. He is not then. And he's captain of that team, which is really impressive. I didn't expect that at all, because I don't know him. I just look at him. I just watch him play. And I got to tell you, if you're putting a C on that kid's chest at his young age, because he's 24 now, 25, 23.
Drafted 17, so was he 18 at that point?
Yeah, so 23. You're putting a lot of stock into this guy who's going to grow your franchise. That tells me the type of competitor he is. He would have been a great Golden Knight. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now you brought it up earlier about Eichel wearing the C maybe at the wrong time or too early. I mean, what about Nico Hischier? He's really done a great job wearing it early, and now we're talking about a Selke contender. We're talking about not a heart contender, but one of the best players on arguably the best team in the NHL, which is the biggest surprise, I think, for all of us. Chances are they won't last, but I mean, for what they're doing, it's kind of fun right now. The league to me is It's up, not up in the air, because I still believe there's only about 5 teams, which I'm now including the Golden Knights, that can win a Stanley Cup. But it is fun to see the Devils run away like that with what, 12 now, 12 in a row.
13, who's counting,
Wow.
right? I mean, well, the thing is, man, the advanced analytics all kept telling us that the Devils are going to be good, and I kept going, no chance, man. They just can't. Like, they're too young, they're immature, goalies suck, they don't have enough D. I just, all these things, and they've proved all of it wrong, man. At the start of the year, I said that, Miles Wood came out after the second game and said it was a must-win game, and I thought that was just a stupid statement. I called it immature. And it's basically like Miles Wood reached through the computer screen and slapped me and said, listen to me, I'm going to take this team on my shoulders. Which, hey, man, I love that. That team is – did you see them? Did you watch highlights of them last night? Like, they get across the blue line, dude, and they are absolutely firing the puck 3 times back and forth before it ends up in the back of the net. And, dude, from Bratt to Heischer to Hughes, they're scary.
Yeah, they really are. And Hughes' talent is really showing this year. I think it's been showing, since he hit the ice as a rookie, but now it's sort of putting it together. And he's now a legit threat that, again, guys like that would score because their talent would do that, naturally put the puck in the net. But now he's a legitimate threat. Who knows how long it lasts, but I do enjoy seeing it. And it's making the league a little interesting. Parity has, in my opinion, hurt the league a little bit because there's some teams that really do suck. And so when I say there's a 5 or 6 teams that can win the cup, I really believe that. And because, going into the season, maybe Pittsburgh might have had a chance. I don't think so anymore. Maybe Washington.
I picked them to win the cup.
Oh, no. let's scrap that one.
Yeah, that wasn't good. Yeah, that wasn't a good pick at all. I didn't pick Jersey to be where they were. And I don't think Carolina's going to be there. I still think Tampa could. I look out west. I still think by the end of the year, I think Edmonton could be a threat by the end of the year. I mean, the Central, for a while there, it looked like it was pretty murky, but there's some pretty strong clubs there again. Dallas, to me, it could absolutely shock people with Ottinger in goal and the way Robertson's playing. Robertson could end up winning a Hart Trophy this year.
Yeah.
He really could. This guy's ridiculous. He was so out of shape when he showed up to us in the American Hockey League in 2018 in Texas that they sent him home. Wow. He came to us after his junior career. He came to us in Texas, and they sent him home because he was so overweight.
Wow. You wouldn't think so, too, because he's a tall and leaner kid. So he must – go ahead.
Here's what happened is that nobody had ever really – he'd been that good that it didn't matter, right? He didn't have to really learn how to do these things. Dallas Stars had a plan for him, and they sent him to Gary Roberts. They sent him to a power skating coach. Jason Robertson took everything that was being handed to him and made it work. He took it all to heart, and look at this kid now. He's a force, dude. So the Central is kind of interesting. I'm curious to see if Dallas can stay at the top. I'm curious to see if Pete DeBoer wins Jack Adams, which I picked to happen. I'm curious.
It's a battle between him and Cassidy, right?
Yeah, and I'm curious if they flame out in the first round. Jim Montgomery could be in the mix too for
Lindy as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, St. Louis looks good again.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about them. I would assume that the trades, the fire sale, that's tabled at the moment.
Yeah, nothing's going to happen there now with St. Louis. And Doug Armstrong's not the type of guy that wanted to do that anyway. It's funny. It's gotten to the brink twice now in like 5 years. Last time they did it, they won a Stanley Cup.
Right.
St. Louis was just hurt. They were missing Saad. They were missing Buchnevich. Jordan Kyrou was playing without a care in the world. He just was floating around. And they were a bit lost defensively, everything. Then their moms showed up.
Yes.
And they went on a heater with their moms in the building, man. So maybe that's what the Golden Knights need to do at like the right time of the year, just plan the moms trip around it, even though they're rolling. So
it's a fantastic trend. I love seeing it. I love seeing the footage of the moms getting all excited after, one of their sons scores. So it's one of those traditions that I love that hockey has because, other sports don't do stuff like that.
No, not a bit. Other sports don't also have a guy who's, doing a Vegas Golden Knights website who ends up going to Qatar or Qatar in the middle of the season to watch the World Cup soccer. So I hope you're watching this, Ken. I hope you're not asleep and we're just dishing on you behind your back here, brother. But no, it's been kind of cool to see him over there. But this is a
Absolutely.
busy week. This is a busy week for the Golden Knights, so man. Like we're gonna see. There's a lot of hockey coming up at home, man.
Yeah. But before we sign off, we definitely need some Thanksgiving talk with Chef Mike. But let's go over the games real quick before we get to that. Wednesday, it's one of those games they need to win, right?
You have to beat the Senators. The problem is that the Senators are desperate. they can't buy a win right now. It's a trap game. How many times have we heard that? It's a trap game. I honest to God, if they come home and lose to the Senators, I would just throw it out the window.
Yeah.
Seriously. I would just look at that one and go, what just happened? And laugh about it and then move on. Because when you get Seattle on Friday, you're going to get a team that plays. They're still a little loose defensively, but they're picking up steam in all areas.
Yeah. And they're getting great goaltending, as you mentioned last week.
Yeah, I mean, Martin Jones, third star of the week from the NHL. This, 933 save percentage in the last 2 weeks. This guy's played really solid for them. We had defenseman Justin Schultz on Sirius XM today, and he said, yeah, Jones has just been a rock for us. Calm. We know what we're getting. I'm like, I don't think that San Jose would have said that about him a couple of years ago. So he's been good. Vancouver's going to be hungry when they come in. Columbus has won, I want to say 3 of their last 4 games, even though they're missing half their lineup. So
I think they always seem to bring it too. It's not an easy out with Philadelphia or with Columbus.
You know why? Is I can't wait to see Mark Stone and Boone Jenner go head to head.
For
the 2
reason?
captains.
Oh, okay.
Because I think the world of both these players, and they play so hard. Like they're the definition of who you want as a captain. Jenner just keeps scoring. He's finding ways to get his team in the mix. And if you watch the habits of those guys, like their sticks are always in the right place. They battle for pucks. They go to the front of the net. Like they just don't take nights off, either of them. And I love those little interpersonal battles. And that's one that I've been looking forward to. When you're going against Columbus, what the hell else are you going to look forward to? Like, I'm not really looking forward to Johnny Gaudreau against Jack Eichel.
Whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's just other than watching their talent, it's not like
exactly. It's not like beating them up. It's just like what you're going to get. You're going to get sick plays from both of them. I want to see the guys that are really going to work and make things go for their team, which to me are Stone and Jenner. And Vancouver's such a mess. I'm not even looking forward to that game. But Seattle, absolutely, I really am with Seattle. So
I'm with Chris here. I think they get 6 out of 8.
I think that's a reasonable expectation. I'm actually they're just due to lose one at some point here.
Sure.
And
maybe it is the Ottawa game.
That's what I mean. Like, I'm going to go 5 out of 8 here, just purely because they've been on such a roll, and I think they've shown some cracks a little bit. Like, let's not kid ourselves; they were a little sleepy at times in the past couple games here. So.
Travel, maybe can we say, the fact that they came home from that long trip, they only spent a few days in town, then they had to go back out again?
Yeah, I just don't want to make excuses for it. So I just feel like they got a little more to give, I guess, is what I would say. So I'm going to go 5 out of 8 on this.
Well, this is a great week, I know. Well, everybody loves Thanksgiving week, I would assume, right? Maybe not Canadians, because it's not they Canadian don't get it. Thanksgiving. Yeah.
They don't get it. It's my favorite holiday.
I was going to go there because I remember last year you talked about this. Basically, it sounded like 2 days worth of food that you cook up and you serve. Yeah. And I'm all excited because my folks flew in from Boston. I'm going to pick up my little sister at the airport. So I'm going to have the entire family here. But I got to fully admit, Mike, we cheated. We got all the turkey and the mashed potatoes and the stuffing from Costco. So
nice. That's fine.
Yeah,
it's about friends and family.
But we need to know what the McKennas are eating.
So my wife's in charge of dessert. She'll make a couple pies. She'll make a pumpkin and a pecan, or pecan, as she likes to say.
I say pecan. Is that one of those like half the people say pecan, or is it just certain people?
She says caramel. I say caramel. It's a
Okay.
Midwestern thing. Um, but she'll make those. I will. I'm going to make some sweet potatoes that are glazed, almost like creme brulee style. Like I'll put the brown sugar on top with some pecans that I've toasted up, and
Ooh,
so I'll make the mash. I'll make the mashed sweet potatoes, cover it with brown sugar and pecans, and then I'll broil it until it's like crisp, almost like creme
wow.
brulee style. I like that.
Yeah.
Wife will make green bean casserole, which I like. I've made stuffing in the past, but nobody seems to eat it. I may pass on making stuffing this year.
What? Because it's too heavy, or just because there's so
I
much
don't
food they don't
know.
get around to it?
I love it, but some people just don't seem to eat it. So we'll see on that. I'm going to make some cranberries with some chipotle and jicama in it. That
Oh
one I got
wow.
from Rick Bayless. I'm excited. Jicama will give it a little bit of crunch, and the chipotle will give it a little heat. But the big star of the show for me is always doing the turkey.
Oof.
And so yesterday I smoked a whole pork shoulder. I love smoking things on my little PK grill. So I've got a 12 or 13 pound heritage heirloom bird that I got from from Whole Foods.
There you go.
It's the one time I think it's important to buy if you're going to have Thanksgiving, like get a good turkey
Yeah.
if you got the time to do it. So my key to this and the trick is that I get it out and I put it on a wire rack on a cookie sheet. And I really do this from almost everything that I smoke. I get it out the day before into the fridge. So I'll get it rubbed and brined or whatever I do. With my turkey, I don't wet brine. I dry brine it. I just do salt. So
So you're you're
all,
you're taking the salt, you're sticking it in through the skin and rubbing it on the outside.
all you do is you just salt that sucker like crazy all over the outside of it, and you let it sit in the fridge for at least a day. And what it does is number one, it permeates through the skin, it seasons the meat, thoroughly, but it also being in the fridge helps dry out the skin. And
Mm.
here's the thing, here's the thing that I think people do wrong when it comes to smoking poultry. When you smoke pork shoulder or ribs or brisket or these tough cuts of meat, you want to do it low and slow. That's what we've always heard, right? And low and slow means generally you want to be below 325, maybe below 300. Most people say 225.
For about
You
what,
can,
8 to 10 hours?
well, it depends on size, ambient temp, all those things. So realistically, smoking stuff, 250 is fine. You can go anywhere between 225, 275. It's good. Now, poultry, though, doesn't have that same intramuscular fat that the other cuts that I described have. And so to me, poultry, you can run it a lot hotter and just make sure that you're running smoke through it and it'll soak it up. Poultry soaks up smoke real quick. So you don't want to over smoke your bird. You want to make sure that you just have a nice light blue to white smoke coming out. You don't want heavy white smoke. And I would like to run it at like 350, 375. I run it hot
You get it
because
all nice and crispy, don't you?
exactly. Yeah. I love the crispy skin. And I think it gets done quicker too. Like you don't have to sit out there all day and you get crispy skin because at a low temp, you won't get crispy skin. And so that's kind of
You
my
need the
key.
crispy skin.
You have to have it. And so it's not about a rub or seasoning. Like I'll stuff the cavity of the bird with just every herb on earth. Like I'll grab all the, rosemary, sage, thyme, and I'll stick a couple of like lemon halves in there. But what it really comes down to is getting that thing prepped early, get it salted early, and just make sure you don't overcook it. Like I pull it off the grill at I think 155, 160 and let it sit for a solid hour before I ever
Oh,
slice
it's just
into that
the
thing.
kitchen smelling like turkey. Oh
So
man.
good. Smoked
I'm
turkey.
I'm getting I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. You're gonna get disappointed in me before we sign off here. So my wife normally does the cooking on Thanksgiving, right? One
Yeah.
year she was working, so it was just her and I, and so I decided to make the meal. And when she got home, and, I had the turkey waiting for her. I left the bag of giblets inside when I cooked the whole entire turkey.
I've done that before with chicken. I honest
Oh,
to God
okay.
smoked the
So
chicken.
it wasn't
Yeah.
just me being a moron.
I smoked a chicken with one because it was like shoved way down in the cavity, and I even
Yeah.
like tried to take it out, and it was in there. And afterwards I just laughed. I there they are. So I'll make the gravy the day in advance. I would make stuffing day in advance to try to, help facilitate the process the next day. And it's no problem. You put it in the fridge, you warm it up, slap a little bit of gravy on top of it, drippings and everything. Yeah, the drippings are good. So somebody asked me if I do a ham. I don't for Thanksgiving.
It's a
My wife doesn't.
Christmas thing.
Well, my family doesn't really like ham, and I really like ham, but they don't. So it's kind of a lost cause around here. If people aren't going to eat it, I don't want to do it. Although I love you give me a honey baked ham, and I'll smoke that. I'll smash that whole thing.
Oh, and
It's
great
so good.
leftovers too. It makes some great
Oh,
sandwiches the
a
next
little
day.
mustard on that sucker. It's so good. Mayo or mustard. So good, but no one else here likes it. The one thing that I have adapted that I'm not sure if I'll do it this year or not, but I have previously sometimes. I do like to be, even though I'm 0% Italian, I like making like a baked ziti or a baked pasta.
There's always a
Sometimes
lasagna. Always for my
that's
meal. There's always a lasagna
exactly
there.
like it's a very Italian thing to do a lasagna. And for me, I love lasagna, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to make. So it's easier for me to just do a baked pasta. Like put a bunch of cheese in that sucker, a little red sauce, fresh herbs and things, just church that baby on up. And people eat it. It's pasta, man.
Oh,
Everybody eats
100%.
it.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've always been a fan of the turkey, but I grew up with my mom was fully Italian and my dad as well. So, well, my dad is a little French Canadian as well, where I got the last name. But there would always be baked ziti. Oh, the lasagna is a staple, but there would always be other plates as well. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things that it will go. It will definitely be
Yep.
eaten.
It does. It's just too good not to. And you know what? I am going to make rolls this year from scratch. I'm excited about that. Yeah. I've really started to
tweet
like,
pictures of those.
yeah, well, if I don't screw them up, I've really started to enjoy baking. It's usually in the form of pizza, but I really do like working with the dough. If I had more time, that's something that I'd really like to do is kind of learn how to actually just make basic dinner rolls and biscuits and things from scratch. I've made them, but I'd like to really perfect it. I've perfected pizza. I got you Detroit style. You can't beat me at that. That's my game that you will not win.
Wow, I would love to try sometime. Somebody real quick said lamb chops on Christmas for you, or do you ever cook up lamb chops?
I like lamb a lot. Family likes it too, but Christmas I typically do a big prime rib.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah.
I think everybody on the comment section is basically saying they would like an invite to your Thanksgiving on Thursday.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, you guys crowdfund a little bit and fly us out there to Vegas, and I'll do my magic.
Oh man, that would be a fantastic Thanksgiving.
Maybe Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm can help us, but no,
Absolutely.
we're pretty pumped to have it with family. My cousin Scott and his family's going to come over here, and I don't have a big family. I'm an only child, and a lot of the rest of the family's out of town. So it's nice when we have these moments. My parents will be over too. And
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we're the same boat. It's because I'm in Vegas and most of my family's in Boston. So it's nice to get everybody out here and, pig out a little bit and have some fun. So, again, thank you everybody for watching today. Of course, it's a little different because Ken's not here. So maybe it's a little more mellow and Mike his vein isn't going crazy on top of his
Ken
forehead.
Ken can't find a reason to bitch about everything, even though the team's like basically leading the NHL.
Right. There's no way, but he would have found some way. But we want to thank the Jimerson Law Firm as always for sponsoring Goalie Interference. And Mike, give us some parting words.
Well, I think I'm getting soft because it's usually been real positive things, but it really is. Today I actually every Tuesday I skate with the St. Louis Blues Warriors team, which is comprised of, I've talked about it before, but it's comprised of all veterans with a 10% disability rating. And in Vegas, there's also a Warrior team out there that I have several friends that play for and have been a part of. Wolverine's one of them. And Jay Gronstad, another friend of mine out there, and everybody that plays for the Vegas Veteran Club. But this morning we were joined by Ed Stanowski, who's an old goaltender in the NHL, played about 9-10-year career. And when this guy retired from the game, he joined the Canadian Army and became a ranger and served his country in Africa and Afghanistan, saw combat duty. I mean, this guy's just an absolute badass. Ed Stanowski. Ed Stanowski, if you want to look him up. I was just like thrilled to be on the ice with this guy. Not just because of, what he'd done and how much I respected it, but because I absolutely love talking with older generations of goaltenders. And when we're on the ice and we're coaching a bit, I love to hear them impart their advice to the goaltenders and hear how similar it is, even in today's game where we're all butterfly and we're on our knees and we're totally different from what they learned years ago. The fundamentals of the position are still the same. The geometry of goaltending, the core tenets that you can't get away from, tracking the puck, all these things. And I don't know, man, it's just a really, really cool moment. I really value that time with goaltenders that have been there and done that in different eras than I did, because it took a huge amount of guts. They largely did it on their own. And I think that their perspective is just so valuable. These guys were warriors, man. And this Ed Stanowski dude not just was a warrior on the ice, he walked out of hockey and he went into the service. And I'm just blown away by this guy. So it was a really cool morning on the ice.
That must have been exciting for you. That's really cool.
It was cool. It was really cool. So
Well,
I hope
Ken,
everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. I'm
Yes.
thankful for everybody for listening to us and making this happen. Obviously, very thankful for Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm, who's, when you need a winner, he's our guy.
He is.
And
We'll
I'm
be
thankful for
here.
you, Jason. I'm thankful for you and Ken.
Oh, Mike, as always, and I think we're thankful for everybody watching and listening. We'll be back on Wednesday, our normal day next week, and because I believe they're playing Tuesday, right?
Yes.
So yeah, we'll be on schedule next week. Who knows? Maybe
Yep.
we'll see an appearance from Ken. But Ken and Abby are having a blast out in Qatar, however you want to say it. But either way, thanks again to the Jimerson Law Firm, like you said, and I don't know, go Golden Knights, right? I mean, this is
You
it.
just gave it a Go Knights go.
Yeah, I did. Let's end it on a Go Knights go.
That's a sign off. All right. Check you next week, everybody. Thanks for
Happy
tuning in.
Thanksgiving.